There exists in the depths of human nature a profound mystery that few dare to examine closely. It is the mystery of the empath, that soul who stands perpetually at the intersection of light and shadow, healing and harm, salvation and destruction. You have felt this, haven't you? The way your very presence seems to summon both the wounded seeking solace and the wounded seeking to wound. This is not coincidence. This is archetypal law. When I speak of the empath, I do not speak merely of someone who feels deeply. I speak of a living paradox, a walking contradiction that embodies what I have called the transcendent function, the bridge between opposites that refuse to be reconciled through logic alone. The empath is simultaneously the healer and the target, the sanctuary and the battleground, the light that attracts both moths seeking warmth and predators seeking to extinguish flame. To understand this paradox, we must descend into the realm of the collective unconscious, where archetypes dwell in their eternal dance of opposition and unity. The empath, by their very nature, activates multiple archetypal patterns simultaneously. They are the wounded healer, carrying medicine born from their own suffering. They are the innocent, radiating an authenticity that both inspires and threatens. They are the magician, wielding the power to transform emotional lead into psychological gold. And they are the martyr, unconsciously offering themselves as sacrifice for the sins of the collective. But here lies the danger and the gift. Each archetype that awakens in the empath's field draws forth its corresponding shadow from the unconscious of others. The healer summons the destroyer. The innocent calls forth the corrupter. The magician attracts the trickster. The martyr magnetizes the persecutor. This is not punishment. This is the natural law of psychic equilibrium, where every force seeks its opposite to achieve wholeness. Consider the empath walking through life, unknowingly broadcasting signals from their deepest psychic layers. Their nervous system, finely tuned to detect emotional frequencies, transmits as much as it receives. They emit what I have termed the authenticity frequency, a vibration that resonates with the core wounds and core longings of everyone they encounter. Some souls, hungry for genuine connection, are drawn to this frequency like pilgrims to a sacred spring. Others, terrified of their own authenticity, are repelled by it like vampires from sunlight. The healing that empaths attract is real and profound. They become unwitting therapists, confessors, and spiritual midwives to those ready to birth their hidden selves into consciousness. People confess secrets they have never spoken aloud. They weep tears they have held back for decades. They experience breakthroughs simply by being witnessed without judgment. The empath's gift lies not in what they do, but in what they are, a clear mirror reflecting the soul back to itself. But this same gift makes them magnets for those who cannot bear such reflection. The empath's authenticity becomes a silent accusation to those living behind masks. Their emotional availability triggers rage in those who have learned to survive through disconnection. Their willingness to feel becomes an invitation for those who prefer others to carry their pain. The very light that heals some becomes the target for others' unexamined shadows. In my clinical work, I have observed this pattern countless times. The empath enters a room and immediately becomes the focal point of unconscious projections. The narcissist sees them as perfect supply, an endless source of attention and validation. The sociopath identifies them as ideal prey, someone whose compassion can be weaponized against them. The trauma survivor recognizes them as a potential savior, someone who might finally understand their pain.
The spiritual bypassing individual views them as a threat, someone whose genuine feeling exposes their own spiritual pretense. But perhaps most dangerously, other wounded empaths are drawn to them in what I call empathic fusion, a psychological phenomenon where two or more sensitive souls become so entangled that they lose all sense of individual boundaries. They begin carrying each other's wounds, amplifying each other's pain, creating feedback loops of suffering that can persist for years or even lifetimes. The empath, unaware of these dynamics, often blames themselves for attracting difficulty. They ask, "Why do I keep meeting the wrong people? Why do broken souls seek me out? What am I doing wrong?" But they are asking the wrong questions. The correct inquiry is, what archetypal role am I unconsciously playing, and how is it shaping my reality? Dreams often reveal these unconscious roles with startling clarity. I recall a patient who dreamed repeatedly of standing in a lighthouse during a storm. Ships would approach, some seeking safe harbor, others crashing against the rocks despite her beacon's warning. She would wake feeling responsible for every vessel that foundered, not understanding that lighthouses do not control the sea. They merely illuminate what is already there. This is the empath's fundamental misunderstanding. They believe they are responsible for the outcomes of their encounters, when in truth, they are simply revealing what already exists in the psychic field. Their sensitivity does not create the healing or the harm, it unveils it. They are archaeologists of the soul, excavating what has been buried in the human heart. The harm that empaths attract often comes through what I term shadow magnetism. Because they carry such powerful light, they unknowingly draw forth equally powerful darkness from the collective unconscious. This darkness appears in various forms: the energy vampire who feeds on their vitality, the emotional terrorist who weaponizes their compassion, the spiritual predator who uses their openness for manipulation, the trauma bonding partner who keeps them trapped in cycles of rescue and abandonment. Yet even this harm serves a purpose in the grand design of individuation. Through their encounters with shadow figures, empaths are forced to develop psychological muscles they might never have strengthened otherwise. They learn discernment, the art of distinguishing between genuine need and manipulation. They develop sovereignty, the capacity to feel deeply without losing themselves. They cultivate what I call compassionate detachment, the ability to witness suffering without absorbing it. The most profound realization for the maturing empath is that both the healing and the harm they attract are reflections of their own inner landscape. The savior they magnetize reflects their own inner healer seeking expression. The predator they draw forth mirrors their own inner critic turned outward. The lost soul seeking rescue echoes their own abandoned child crying for attention. The enlightened being offering wisdom represents their own inner sage waiting to emerge. This is why the empath's journey inevitably leads to shadow work, the conscious engagement with the dark aspects of their own psyche. Only by befriending their inner destroyer can they stop attracting outer destruction. Only by acknowledging their inner manipulator can they recognize manipulation in others. Only by owning their inner victim can they cease being victimized. Only by integrating their inner predator can they develop healthy aggression and boundaries. The process is alchemical in nature. The empath must learn to contain the opposites within themselves rather than projecting them onto the external world. They must become the laboratory where healing and harm are transformed into wisdom. This requires what I have called active imagination, a conscious dialogue with the archetypal forces moving through their field.
I often guide empaths through an exercise where they visualize themselves standing in the center of a great crossroads. From the north comes a figure representing all those who have sought healing through them.
From the south approaches a figure embodying all those who have brought harm. From the east walks a representation of their own wounded healer. From the west emerges their own shadow destroyer. The task is not to choose sides, but to stand firm in the center, acknowledging each figure, learning from each, and integrating their teachings. This integration transforms the empath from unconscious magnet to conscious alchemist. They no longer simply attract healing and harm. They consciously participate in the transformation of both. They become what I term psychological shamans, capable of journeying into the underworld of human suffering and returning with medicine for the collective. The healed empath develops what I call strategic sensitivity, the ability to open and close their empathic field at will. They learn to discern which encounters serve their growth and which drain their essence. They develop energetic boundaries that are permeable yet protective, allowing love to flow while filtering out toxicity. They cultivate inner strength that can hold space for others' pain without drowning in it. Most importantly, they learn to see their gift not as a burden to be managed, but as a calling to be honored. They understand that their sensitivity is not a defect, but a design feature, a biological and psychological adaptation that serves the evolution of consciousness itself. They are the early warning system for humanity's emotional weather, the canaries in the coal mine of collective mental health, the bridge builders between the world of form and the realm of feeling. Yet this understanding comes with profound responsibility. The awakened empath must resist the temptation to use their gift for personal gain or ego inflation. They must guard against spiritual pride, the belief that their sensitivity makes them superior to others. They must avoid the savior complex, the compulsive need to rescue everyone they encounter, and they must resist the victim identity, the seductive comfort of being perpetually wounded. The true empath's path leads not to withdraw from the world, but to deeper engagement with it. They become wounded healers who have integrated their wounds, light bearers who have befriended their shadows, bridges who have learned to span chasms without being torn apart. They attract both healing and harm, not because they are flawed, but because they are whole, containing the full spectrum of human experience within their expanded consciousness. In the end, the mystery of the empath's dual magnetism reveals itself as the mystery of life itself. We are all simultaneously healers and patients, teachers and students, light and shadow. The empath simply embodies this paradox more consciously than most. They serve as living reminders that wholeness is not about perfection, but about integration, the ability to hold all aspects of existence within the container of awareness. Their gift to the world is not their ability to heal or their willingness to absorb harm, but their demonstration that it is possible to be fully human while remaining fully awake. They show us that sensitivity is not weakness but strength, that feeling deeply is not dysfunction but wisdom, that carrying light does not require denying darkness but transforming it. As I have often said, the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. For the empath, this means embracing their role as collectors of human experience, transformers of emotional energy, and bridges between the conscious and unconscious realms. They attract both healing and harm because they are designed to process both into something higher, into compassion, into wisdom, into the medicine the world desperately needs. The secret, then, is not to stop attracting these polarities, but to learn to dance with them consciously, to alchemize them skillfully, and to trust that in doing so, they serve not only their own individuation, but the evolution of human consciousness itself. For in the end, the empath's journey from unconscious absorption to conscious transformation is a microcosm of humanity's journey from fragmentation to wholeness, a journey that requires all of us to embrace both our capacity to heal and our potential to harm, and to find in that embrace the transcendent third that transforms all opposition into unity. This is the empath's true calling, to stand at the crossroads where all opposites meet, and to demonstrate through their very being that love is not the absence of darkness, but the conscious integration of all that exists in the human heart. They attract both healing and harm, not as punishment, but as privilege, the privilege of participating in the great work of conscious evolution, one encounter at a time, one breath at a time, one moment of courageous vulnerability at a time. And so the dance continues, the eternal interplay of light and shadow, healing and harm, projection and integration. The empath stands at the center of this cosmic choreography, no longer its victim, but its conscious participant, no longer its casualty, but its artist. They have learned the greatest secret of all, that to be fully alive means to be fully open to everything life offers, the beautiful and the terrible, the sacred and the profane, the healing and the harm, and to transform it all through the alchemy of awareness into the gold of wisdom, the medicine of love, and the light of conscious awareness. This is why empaths attract both healing and harm. This is their secret, their burden, and their gift. This is their calling, their cross, and their crown. This is the mystery they embody, the paradox they resolve, and the teaching they offer to a world still learning how to feel without drowning, how to love without losing itself, how to heal without causing harm. In their willingness to be wounded, they become healers. In their capacity to feel harm, they develop the power to heal. In their attraction to both extremes, they discover the middle way that transforms all extremes into wisdom. They are the living proof that consciousness can embrace its own contradictions and find in that embrace not paralysis, but power, not confusion, but clarity, not despair, but hope. This is the empath's secret. They attract both healing and harm because they are designed to transform both into love. And in a world desperately in need of such transformation, they are nothing less than evolutionary agents of the heart, alchemists of the soul, and servants of the one great work that has always called to humanity, the work of becoming consciously whole while remaining tenderly human. The crossroads await, the dance continues, the transformation beckons, and the empath, standing at the center of it all, finally understands they were never meant to choose between healing and harm. They were meant to transcend the choice by embracing both, and in that embrace, to discover the third way that heals all wounds and harms no one, the way of conscious love, integrated wholeness, and awakened compassion. This is their secret, this is their gift, this is their calling, and this is why the world needs them now more than ever, not as victims of their sensitivity, but as masters of it, not as casualties of their gift, but as conscious wielders of its power, not as those who suffer from their attraction to opposites, but as those who have learned to alchemize all opposites into the gold of wisdom, the medicine of love, and the light of conscious awareness.
But let us delve deeper still into the mechanics of this mysterious attraction, for there are layers upon layers to this phenomenon that most never perceive. The empath operates on what I have termed vibrational frequencies of the psyche, electromagnetic patterns that emanate from their energy field and interact with the unconscious of everyone in their vicinity. These frequencies are not metaphorical, but measurably real, encoded in their nervous system, their breathing patterns, their posture, even their cellular structure. When an empath enters a space, they unconsciously broadcast their entire emotional history. Every wound they have healed, every trauma they have integrated, every moment of transcendence they have experienced. This creates what I call a psychic beacon that sends out simultaneous signals to both the light and shadow aspects of the collective unconscious. It is as if they are speaking in two languages at once, one that calls to those ready for healing, another that summons those who embody harm. The healing frequencies attract what I term soul seekers, individuals whose unconscious recognizes the empath as a potential catalyst for their own awakening. These are often people who have reached what I call the crisis point of authenticity, where their false personas can no longer contain their true selves. They're drawn to the empath not because they consciously seek help, but because their conscious recognizes in the empath's field the very medicine their soul has been craving. I recall treating a woman whose empathic nature consistently drew people to confess their deepest secrets within moments of meeting her. Strangers would pour out confessions on park benches. Cashiers would tell her about their childhood trauma while ringing up groceries. Taxi drivers would weep as they shared stories they had never told anyone. She felt burdened by this constant role as involuntary confessor, until she understood that she was serving as a living embodiment of what I call the sacred witness, an archetypal function that allows souls to release what they have been carrying in isolation. Yet, simultaneously, her same energy field attracted what I term shadow hunters, individuals whose unconscious recognized her as a threat to their carefully constructed defenses. These were people living behind elaborate masks who sensed that her authenticity could expose their pretense. They would often approach her with seeming friendliness, only to later engage in subtle forms of psychological warfare designed to diminish her light. They were not consciously malicious, they were unconsciously protecting themselves from the mirror she represented. This dual magnetism creates what I have observed as the empath's dilemma, a constant oscillation between experiences of profound connection and devastating betrayal. One day they are the beloved healer, the next they are the rejected scapegoat. This pattern persists until they understand that both responses are projections of the same archetypal dynamic playing out through different characters. The harm that empaths attract often manifests through what I call energetic vampirism, not the supernatural concept popularized by folklore, but a very real psychological phenomenon where individuals with severely depleted life force unconsciously seek to restore themselves by drawing energy from those who possess it in abundance. The empath's natural vitality becomes a target for those who have disconnected from their own source of life energy. These energy vampires are not necessarily malicious beings, they are often deeply wounded individuals who have learned to survive by borrowing the emotional and spiritual resources of others. They may present as perpetual victims requiring constant rescue, or as charming manipulators who drain through excessive demands for attention, or as emotional terrorists who create crisis to maintain connection. The empath, programmed from childhood to care for others' emotional needs, becomes caught in these draining dynamics without recognizing the parasitic nature of the exchange. But perhaps the most insidious form of harm comes through what I call empathic mirroring, when other wounded empaths recognize a kindred spirit and attempt to merge their energy fields completely. This creates a phenomenon I have observed in many of my patients: two or more highly sensitive individuals becoming so psychically entangled that they lose all sense of individual identity. They begin to experience each other's emotions as their own, carry each other's traumas, and often develop shared symptoms of psychological distress.
I treated a pair of empathic friends who had become so merged that when one experienced anxiety, the other would have panic attacks. When one fell into depression, the other would mirror the same emotional state within hours. They had unconsciously created what I call a psychic symbiosis that felt like ultimate intimacy, but was actually a form of mutual possession. Neither could function independently, and both were drowning in amplified emotional intensity. The healing attraction operates through entirely different mechanisms. Empaths naturally embody what I call the wounded healer archetype. They carry within their being both the wound and the medicine, the question and the answer, the problem and the solution. This creates a unique energy signature that resonates with others who are ready to embark on their own healing journey. The empath becomes a living demonstration that it is possible to transform suffering into wisdom, trauma into strength, sensitivity into power. Their very existence serves as proof that wounds can become sacred, that pain can become medicine, that breakdown can become breakthrough. Those who encounter them at the right moment in their own journey recognize this possibility and are drawn to learn how such transformation occurs. Yet the empath must understand that they are not responsible for others' healing. They are simply catalysts for processes that must unfold from within each individual. Their role is not to fix or save, but to model what integration looks like, to demonstrate that it is possible to feel deeply without drowning, to love without losing oneself, to be wounded without being broken. This understanding transforms the entire dynamic. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the constant demands for healing, the conscious empath learns to hold space without taking responsibility. They become what I call spiritual midwives, assisting in the birth of others' authentic selves without trying to control the process or outcome. The key insight is that both healing and harm are attracted to empaths because both represent unconscious attempts to resolve the same fundamental human dilemma: how to be authentically oneself in a world that often punishes authenticity. Those seeking healing recognize the empath as someone who has found a way to be genuinely themselves. Those bringing harm are often trying to destroy what they cannot achieve: authentic self-expression. This is why the empath's journey inevitably leads to what I call authentic sovereignty, the capacity to remain true to one's essential nature regardless of external pressures to conform or perform. This sovereignty is not achieved through hardening or withdrawal, but through what I term conscious permeability, the ability to remain open and sensitive while maintaining clear energetic boundaries.
The development of authentic sovereignty requires the empath to undergo what I call the great reversal. Instead of adapting themselves to meet others' needs and expectations, they learn to remain centered in their own truth and allow others to choose how to respond. Instead of absorbing others' emotions to maintain harmony, they learn to witness emotions without taking ownership of them. Instead of sacrificing their well-being to avoid conflict, they learn that healthy conflict is often necessary for authentic relationship. This reversal is profoundly threatening to those who have become accustomed to the empath's accommodating nature. Partners may escalate their demands, friends may withdraw their approval, family members may increase their guilt-inducing behaviors. This is what I call extinction burst, a temporary intensification of problematic patterns when the empath stops enabling them. Many empaths retreat during this phase, returning to their old patterns of overgiving and self-sacrifice to restore temporary peace. But those who persist through this challenging period discover something remarkable. The people who truly belong in their lives adapt to the new dynamics and often express gratitude for the empath's stronger boundaries. Those who cannot adapt naturally fall away, creating space for more authentic connections to emerge. The mature empath learns to see both healing and harm as information rather than instruction. When someone seeks healing through them, they ask, "What does this person's journey have to teach me about my own process?" When someone brings harm, they inquire, "What part of my own shadow is being reflected back to me through this encounter?" Both experiences become opportunities for deeper self-understanding, rather than evidence of their success or failure as a human being. This perspective leads to what I call archetypal awareness, the recognition that all human encounters are essentially archetypal dramas playing out between different aspects of the collective psyche. The empath learns to identify which archetypal roles are being activated in any given interaction and to respond from consciousness rather than unconscious compulsion. For example, when approached by someone playing the victim archetype, the unconscious empath immediately responds from their rescuer programming. But the conscious empath recognizes the archetypal pattern and chooses their response deliberately. They may offer compassionate witnessing without taking responsibility for solutions, or they may decline to engage if they sense the person is not truly ready for change. Similarly, when confronted by someone embodying the persecutor archetype, the unconscious empath typically responds from their victim conditioning, becoming defensive or accommodating. The conscious empath recognizes this as an opportunity to integrate their own warrior energy, setting clear boundaries, speaking truth with courage, and refusing to be diminished by another's shadow projections. This archetypal awareness transforms the empath from unconscious participant to conscious director of their own drama of life. They begin to choose which roles to play and which to decline, which energies to engage and which to transmute, which relationships to cultivate and which to release. The ultimate realization for the evolved empath is that their gift was never meant to be used primarily for others, but for the collective evolution of consciousness itself. They are not personal healers, but species healers, working not just on individual wounds, but on the archetypal patterns that create wounding in the first place. Through their conscious integration of light and shadow, healing and harm, they contribute to what I call the morphic field of human consciousness, the invisible web of shared awareness that connects all beings. Every moment of authentic self-expression, every act of conscious boundary setting, every choice to transform pain into wisdom ripples out through this field and makes it easier for others to access similar capacities. This is why the empath's personal healing work is never just personal. When they learn to stop absorbing others' emotions, they weaken the collective pattern of emotional enmeshment. When they develop healthy boundaries, they strengthen the morphic field around individual sovereignty. When they transform their wounds into wisdom, they add to the collective repository of healing knowledge available to all. The empath who understands this larger purpose finds meaning in their most difficult experiences. Every betrayal becomes an opportunity to develop discernment. Every manipulation becomes a lesson in recognizing authentic versus inauthentic energy. Every moment of overwhelm becomes a chance to practice conscious containment of emotional intensity. They begin to see their sensitivity not as a personal burden, but as a collective service, their emotional intensity not as individual dysfunction, but as species evolution in action. They understand that they are part of humanity's growing edge, the pioneers who are developing new capacities for conscious feeling, authentic relating, and integrated being. This understanding brings profound peace to the empath's journey. They no longer ask, "Why me?" but "How can I serve?" They no longer see their challenges as evidence of their inadequacy, but as opportunities to develop capacities that the world desperately needs. They no longer feel victimized by their gift, but honored to carry it. The dance between healing and harm continues, but now the empath moves as a conscious participant rather than an unconscious casualty. They attract both healing and harm, not because they are broken, but because they are whole enough to transform whatever arises into wisdom. They serve as living bridges between the world as it is and the world as it could be, more conscious, more compassionate, more authentically connected. In the end, the empath's secret is revealed. They attract both healing and harm because they are designed to demonstrate that love is stronger than fear, consciousness more powerful than unconsciousness, integration more beautiful than fragmentation. They are the living proof that it is possible to remain tender in a harsh world, open in a closed society, authentic in a culture of pretense. Their journey from unconscious absorption to conscious transformation serves as a roadmap for humanity's own evolution from reactive to responsive, from fragmented to whole, from unconscious to awake. They are the canaries in the coal mine of human consciousness, the early warning system for species-wide emotional and spiritual health, the bridge builders between the world of form and the realm of spirit. This is their true calling, their sacred burden, their evolutionary gift. They attract both healing and harm, not as punishment, but as privilege, the privilege of participating in the great work of conscious evolution, one breath at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of courageous authenticity at a time. And in fulfilling this calling, they serve not only their own individuation, but the awakening of human consciousness itself.